Reawakening, the mining asteroid Kepler 442b rotated slowly in the void, its surface scarred by decades of extraction. Captain Jack Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead as he guided the plasma drill deeper into the rock face. The heat from the drilling made his environmental suit work over time, but he couldn't stop. The Dominion expected their quotas met, and failure meant punishment for his entire crew. Jack had been many things in his 43 years. A soldier in the Terran Defense Force before the Conquest. A rebel fighter during the failed uprising of 2387. A prisoner in the crystal mines of Vega Prime for 5 long years. Now he was a mining supervisor, keeping his head down and his people alive. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was the life the Dominion had given him. The galaxy had belonged to the Dominion for 5,000 years. They were beings of living, crystal, tall, and graceful, their bodies refracting light in impossible ways. Beautiful to look at, but cold as the vacuum of space. They ruled through absolute superiority, technological, military, and intellectual. Every species that had ever challenged them had been crushed or absorbed into their empire. Humanity had lasted exactly 17 hours. That was 47 years ago. Jack remembered being a young man, watching the news broadcasts as the Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace above Earth. Massive ships that looked more like floating cathedrals than warships. The human fleet had fought bravely, desperately. It hadn't mattered. The Dominion's crystal technology was thousands of years ahead of anything humans possessed. Jack, you need to see this. The voice crackled through his helmet cone. It was Dr. Aria Santos, the team's geological surveyor. She sounded excited, which was unusual. Aria rarely got excited about anything anymore. Jack sealed the drill housing and made his way through the asteroid's cramped tunnels to where Aria was working. She stood in a natural cavern, her scanner beeping frantically as it swept over something embedded in the rock wall. "What is it?" Jack asked, though part of him already knew. The object was clearly artificial, too smooth, too purposeful to be natural. But it wasn't Dominion technology. The crystal beings built everything with flowing, organic lines. This was angular, mechanical, practical. "It's human," Aria whispered. "Jack, this is pre-Conquest human technology." "But that's impossible. This asteroid is in the outer rim, thousands of light years from Earth. How did human tech get here?" Jack stared at the object. It was roughly the size of a briefcase, made from what looked like titanium alloy. There were symbols etched into its surface, not the flowing script of the Dominion, but harsh, angular human letters. As he watched, the symbols began to glow with a soft blue light. "It's activating," Aria breathed. The device projected a hologram. A human figure in an old Terran Defense Force uniform. Jack's breath caught. He recognized the insignia, the style of uniform. This was from before the Conquest, but not by much. Maybe a few years at most. "If you're seeing this message," the hologram said, "then you're human, and you've found one of our caches. My name is Admiral Sarachun, and I have something important to tell you." The Conquest wasn't what it seemed. Jack and Aria exchanged glances. Admiral Chun had been a legend during the final days before the Conquest. She'd commanded the last free human fleet, had been presumed dead when her ships vanished during the Battle of Proxima. "The Dominion believes they defeated us completely," the hologram continued. "They're wrong. Before the final battle, we scattered caches like this one throughout the galaxy. Each contains not just weapons and supplies, but information. The truth about human capabilities that the Dominion never discovered." The hologram paused, and Admiral Chun's expression grew serious. "The Dominion thinks we're simple. They think human minds are chaotic and inefficient compared to their crystal consciousness. They're right about the chaos part, but they don't understand that chaos can be a strength. The projection changed, showing star charts and tactical displays. While they've been ruling us, we've been learning from them. Every human in their empire has been studying Dominion technology, society, and military doctrine. We know them better than they know themselves, and they know almost nothing about us. Jack felt his heart beating faster. Are you saying there's still a resistance? As if answering his question, the hologram continued. The resistance never died. It just went underground. Deep underground. Every human settlement, every work crew, every servant in their crystal palaces has been waiting for the right moment. That moment is now. The display showed a list of coordinates, locations throughout the galaxy where more caches were hidden. Find the others, Admiral Chun said. Activate the network. Show the Dominion what happens when humanity stops pretending to be defeated. The hologram flickered and died. Jack and Arya stood in silence for a long moment, staring at the device. Jack, Arya said quietly, how many humans do you think are out there? In the entire galaxy, working for the Dominion? Jack thought about it. 47 years since the Conquest. Humans were long-lived and bred quickly. They'd been scattered across thousands of worlds, used as laborers, technicians, and servants. Millions, maybe billions. All of them waiting for a signal. That night, Jack lay in his bunk and thought about what they'd discovered. Around him, his crew slept peacefully, unaware that everything had changed. Maya Okafor, his communications specialist, had quickly established contact with other cache locations. The network was real. It was vast. And it was ready. The next morning brought a routine Dominion inspection. Commander Zethkri arrived on schedule, his crystalline form catching the light from the asteroid's work lamps. He was typical of his species, tall, graceful, and utterly convinced of his superiority. Production reports, Zethkri commanded, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Jack handed over the datapad, keeping his expression neutral. Inside, his heart was racing. The cache was hidden just 50 meters below them. Along with enough weapons to arm his entire crew, Zethkri reviewed the numbers with his usual disdain. Adequate. Though I notice efficiency has decreased by 0.3% this quarter. Perhaps your people require additional motivation. No, sir, Jack replied. We'll do better. See that you do. Zethkri turned to leave, then paused. Tell me, human, do you ever wonder what your species might have accomplished if you had evolved properly? If your minds were capable of true order instead of chaos? Jack looked up at the Dominion commander. All the time, sir. Zethkri made a sound that might have been laughter. Of course you do. Chaos dwelling on order. How perfectly human. He left without another word. Jack waited until the Dominion transport was gone before calling his crew together. 23 humans, all of whom had lost everything. To the Dominion, all of whom had spent decades learning to hide their anger, their hope, their dreams of freedom. Friends, Jack said, I have something to show you. The cache contained more than just Admiral Chun's message. There were weapons, human weapons, designed specifically to fight Dominion technology. There were supplies, communication equipment, and most importantly, detailed intelligence about Dominion weaknesses that the Resistance had gathered over decades. The signal goes out in 72 hours, Jack explained. Every human settlement in the galaxy will receive it. Every work, crew, every servant, every prisoner. And then we show them what humanity can really do. Maya's eyes were bright with unshed tears. After all these years, we're finally going to fight back. Not just fight back, Jack corrected. We're going to win. The next 3 days passed in. Careful preparation. Jack's crew wasn't alone. They'd made contact with 17 other asteroid mining operations in their sector. Hundreds of humans, all armed, all trained, all ready. The Dominion had never expected organized resistance. from what they considered a broken species. On the final night, Jack stood in the observation dome, looking out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights was Earth, still under Dominion control. His homeworld had become a museum piece. A reminder of the Dominion's inevitable victory over Chaos. Arya joined him at the viewport. Nervous? Terrified, Jack admitted, but also excited. For the first time in 47 years, we're going to remind the galaxy that humanity doesn't stay down. The signal went out at precisely 000 hours, Galactic Standard Time. It was simple, just 5 words broadcast on frequencies only humans would recognize. The stars remember our home. Across the galaxy, the response was immediate. On Dominion, factory worlds, human workers suddenly revealed hidden weapons and seized control of production facilities. On luxury planets, human servants turned on their crystal masters. In deep space installations, mining crews like Jack's took over strategic positions. It wasn't one battle. It was 10,000 battles, all happening at once, all coordinated by people the Dominion had dismissed as simple, laborers and servants. The Dominion's response was swift but confused. Their crystal consciousness made them excellent at central planning but terrible at handling chaos. And humanity had brought chaos on a galactic scale. Commander Zeethkri's ship returned to Kepler 442b to find the asteroid's surface bristling with weapons emplacements. Human weapons, firing human ammunition, operated by humans who had spent decades learning exactly how to hurt crystal beings. Asterisk. "This is impossible," Zeethkri transmitted. "You are defeated. You are broken. You cannot resist us." Jack's voice crackled back over the comm. "Commander, I've got a message for you from every human in the galaxy. We were never broken. We were just waiting." The battle for Kepler 442b lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Dominion ship was debris, and Jack Morrison stood victorious on his asteroid surface. Around the galaxy, similar victories were being won by humans the Dominion had never bothered to truly understand. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humanity. They were stubborn, they were creative, and they never, ever forgot a wrong that needed righting. The reclaiming the Dominion's response to the human uprising was as swift as it was brutal. Within hours of the first coordinated strikes, massive fleets began moving toward every system where humans had dared to rebel. The crystal beings had ruled the galaxy for 5 millennia through overwhelming force, and they saw no reason to change tactics now. Commander Zeethkri was dead, but his replacement, Supreme Admiral Korthek, embodied everything terrible about Dominion authority. His flagship, the Eternal Crystal, was a monument to their power, 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that could crack planets. "These animals will remember their place," Korthek declared to the assembled fleet commanders. "We will make such examples of the rebellious systems that no species will dare challenge us again for another 1,000 years." But humanity had learned much in 47 years of servitude. They'd studied Dominion tactics, analyzed their technology, and most importantly, they'd come to understand the crystal being's greatest weakness, their inability to adapt to genuine chaos. Dr. Arya Santos stood in the command center of what had once been Mining Station Omega 7, now transformed into humanity's primary coordination hub. Around her, dozens of human technicians worked at consoles displaying tactical information from across the galaxy. The picture wasn't pretty. "Jack, we've got problems," she called across the room. "The Dominion fleet moving toward the Centauri. Colonies is massive. 43 capital ships and twice that many escorts. Our people there have maybe 6 converted mining vessels and whatever weapons they could improvise." Jack Morrison, now wearing the improvised uniform of the Human Liberation Fleet, studied the tactical displays with grim determination. What about the Vega system? Maya Okafor looked up from her communications array. Similar story. The Dominion is throwing everything they have at us. They're not taking chances this time. It should have been hopeless. The humans had numbers. But the Dominion had technology, coordination, and 5,000 years of military experience. Their ships were works of art. Their weapons could destroy moons. And their crystal consciousness allowed perfect coordination between vessels. What the Dominion didn't understand was that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology. It was their ability to make impossible plans work through pure stubborn creativity. Maya, open a channel to all liberation cells, Jack ordered. It's time to show them what Admiral Chun meant about chaos being a strength. The first major battle took place in the Kepler system, where Jack's original asteroid had become the center of human resistance. The Dominion expected to find mining equipment and desperate workers. Instead, they encountered something that defied every tactical computer in their fleet. The asteroids themselves had been turned into weapons. Human engineers had spent weeks installing massive magnetic rail drivers, using mining equipment to accelerate chunks of ore to significant fractions of light speed. When the Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace, they found themselves in the middle of an impossible maze of high-velocity projectiles. Evasive maneuvers. Admiral Korthek commanded, but his perfect formation was already breaking apart as ships tried to avoid the swarm of accelerated debris. That was when the human ships revealed themselves. They weren't beautiful like Dominion vessels. They were ugly, practical, and bristling with weapons that had been cobbled together from mining equipment, industrial tools, and salvaged Dominion technology. They looked like flying junkyards, but they fought with desperate ingenuity. The human ships used tactics no civilized species would consider. They rammed Dominion vessels with mining barges loaded with explosives. They used industrial cutting lasers to slice through crystal armor. They coordinated their attacks through methods the Dominion's perfect computers couldn't predict or counter. This is chaos, Admiral Korthek observed with disgust as his fleet struggled to adapt to human tactics. There's no pattern, no strategy, no intelligent design. He was right. But what he didn't understand was that chaos could be just as effective as order when wielded by people who thrived in it. The Battle of Kepler lasted 16 hours. When it ended, the Dominion fleet was scattered, and Admiral Korthek was broadcasting demands for immediate reinforcements. For the first time in 5,000 years, a Dominion fleet had been defeated by an inferior species. News of the victory spread across the galaxy at light speed. On every world where humans labored under Dominion rule, the message was clear. The crystal beings could be beaten. The revolution spread like wildfire. On the industrial world of Titan Prime, human workers seized control of the orbital shipyards and began converting luxury vessels into warships. On the research stations of the Outer Rim, human scientists turned their knowledge of Dominion technology against their former masters, Dr. Arya. Santos made perhaps the most crucial discovery. On a captured Dominion research vessel, deep in the ship's databanks, she found something that changed everything: the complete genetic and technological history of the crystal beings asterisk. Jack, you need to see this, she called from her makeshift laboratory. The Dominion isn't what they pretend to be. The data revealed a stunning truth. The crystal beings had once been much like humanity, diverse, chaotic, individual. But thousands of years ago, they'd made a choice. They'd sacrificed their individuality for perfect unity, their creativity for perfect order. They'd become powerful, but they'd also become rigid. They can't adapt, Arya explained. Their crystal consciousness prevents individual thought, individual innovation. They're perfect as long as they face enemies who fight like they do. But we don't fight like they do. This revelation led to humanity's greatest tactical breakthrough. Instead of trying to match Dominion technology, they began exploiting its limitations. Human ships started using deliberately unpredictable tactics, making decisions that no rational computer would ever calculate. The Battle of Sol, humanity's birth world, became the turning point of the war. The Dominion sent their largest fleet, determined to destroy the symbolic heart of human resistance. What they found was a system that had been transformed into an impossible maze of defenses. Humans had moved asteroids, deployed debris fields, and created gravitational anomalies using techniques the Dominion had never seen before. Every approach to Earth was covered by weapons that fired in patterns no computer could predict. But the real surprise came when the Dominion fleet engaged what they thought were human ships, only to discover they were fighting automated drones, controlled by human children, playing what they thought was a strategy game. The unpredictability of young human minds created tactical patterns that drove the Dominion's perfect computers into processing loops. "This is impossible," Admiral Korthug transmitted as his flagship was bracketed by fire from weapons that seemed to anticipate his every move. "No species fights like this. There's no honor, no strategy, no intelligent design." Jack Morrison's voice crackled back over the communication channel. "Admiral, that's exactly our point. You've spent 5,000 years getting used to fighting civilized enemies. But humans aren't civilized. We're creative." The Battle of Sol ended with the destruction of the Dominion's greatest fleet. Admiral Korthig's ship was the last to fall, cut apart by mining lasers, operated by former slaves who had learned their craft in Dominion workshops. The war continued for another 6 months, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Across the galaxy, species that had been conquered by the Dominion watched in amazement as chaotic, undisciplined humans systematically dismantled the greatest empire in galactic history. The crystal beings, for all their perfection, couldn't adapt to an enemy that thrived on adaptation. Their rigid tactics were countered by human flexibility. Their perfect unity was defeated by human diversity. Their ancient confidence was shattered by human stubbornness. The final battle took place at the Dominion capital of Crystal Prime. The planet was a work of art, covered in beautiful spires that reached toward the stars. It was also a fortress, protected by defensive systems that had never been tested in 5,000 years of peace. Humanity tested them. Instead of a direct assault, the human fleet approached Crystal Prime through the asteroid belt surrounding the system. They used mining equipment to hollow out the asteroids, turning them into mobile bases. They used industrial fabricators to build weapons inside the asteroids themselves. When the attack came, it came from everywhere at once. Asteroids that had been part of the system's landscape for millions of years suddenly revealed themselves as human war machines. The perfect defenses of Crystal Prime found themselves facing attacks from directions that had never been considered. The battle was brief but decisive. The Dominion's crystal consciousness, which had been their greatest strength, became a weakness when panic spread through their entire network simultaneously. For the first time in their history, the crystal beings experienced fear, uncertainty, and doubt, emotions that their perfect minds couldn't process. Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the beautiful spires of Crystal Prime surrender one by one. Around him, his human crew worked with the easy efficiency of people who had learned to make impossible things work through sheer determination. "Maya, open a channel to the Dominion leadership," he ordered. The response came from the Eternal Hierarch, the supreme leader of the crystal beings. For the first time, his perfect voice carried something that sounded like uncertainty. "What do you want, humans?" Jack looked out at the galaxy through the viewscreen. Somewhere among those stars, billions of humans were waiting to learn what freedom felt like. After 47 years, they were about to find out. "We want what everyone wants," Jack replied. We want to go home. We want to live free. We want to reach for the stars on our own terms. The galaxy belonged to you for 5,000 years. Now it belongs to everyone. The eternal hierarch was silent for a long moment. And if we refuse, then you'll learn what happens when you underestimate chaos, Jack said simply. The surrender came 3 hours later. The greatest empire in galactic history ended not with a bang, but with a simple transmission. We yield to the human chaos. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven that perfection could be defeated by creativity, that order could be overcome by chaos, and that no empire, no matter how powerful, could survive when the people it oppressed stopped being afraid. Jack Morrison stood in the ruins of the Eternal Crystal, surrounded by the most unlikely fleet in galactic history. Mining ships and cargo haulers, converted by human ingenuity into instruments of liberation. They weren't beautiful, like Dominion vessels, but they were something more important. They were free. The stars belonged to everyone now, and humanity would make sure they stayed that way.